To convene the Interreligious Conference this year, it is my honor and pleasure to welcome JJ, Ryan, and Diane to sing and drum and welcome us all. Please.
OCM, CIA, Heights, Scott, CM. We'd like to welcome you here to the traditional territory, the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh people. My father comes from Squamish, so we were asked to come here to acknowledge and welcome you to our traditional territory.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this evening and for taking time out of what is always a busy day for what I think is a very important important journey to be on. It's the journey that we share together. Before I introduce this evening's keynote speaker, who really may not really need so much of introduction, I want to explain a little bit about the concept behind this year's interreligious conference. The title is Walking Together, Sharing the Work and Ideas That Call to Us. And it is a multi-faith, multidisciplinary conference for scholars, activists, and practitioners. Quite a broad net is cast with this title. And I did this deliberately. I wanted to meet as many people from the community that Rabbi Laura has built with this conference over the last many years, and also to give as many people with different interests, passions, vocations, a chance to meet each other here at VST. So just briefly, this title, Walking Together, I kind of borrowed from the Shikoku Henro. It's a pilgrimage around the island of Shikoku in Japan that takes the pilgrim to 88 temples. So you kind of start over here and then walk all the way around. And it's more than 1,000 kilometers, like 750 miles. And depending on, if you're up for it, you can do it in, 30 days, or you can take a bus, and it takes about a week. There are lots of options available. But each temple is associated with a monk named Kobo Daishi, and he's the founder of esoteric Buddhism in Japan. When you become a pilgrim, you get a little uniform. And one of the things is a hat, and another is a staff that you carry. And each of these objects has the words Dogyo Ninin written on it, which means same journey, two people. And the idea is, as the pilgrim is making their way through rain, up and down mountains, down to the ocean, here and there, probably running into setbacks along the way, they realize that they're not walking alone, that actually Kobo Daishi is invisibly walking next to them, supporting them on their journey. And more importantly, the pilgrim realizes that Kobo Daishi's support actually comes from all of the people in the neighborhoods that live around this island, giving them bottles of water, new sandals, umbrella, place to sleep at night. That is Kobo Daishi in real life, walking with them, supporting their journey. So what does that have to do with us? By the way, here is Kobo Daishi in the middle, a statue of him, a pilgrim here on the left, and even here in the Pacific Northwest, this is a statue of Kobo Daishi and a monk making offerings at 2 in the morning, contemplating how did his teachings get all the way over here to Turtle Island 1,200 years after he passed away. He's still walking with us. The reason I picked this theme is all of us come to this conference with some vocation, some passion with which you are spiritually engaged, whether it's care of the elderly, prison chaplaincy, environmental activism, all kinds of different interests and important fields of work are represented here at this conference. But sometimes we might feel we're alone in that work as we go on and on, year after year, devoting our lives to these passions. But in fact, there are people, perhaps from other religious traditions, that are also called to that same type of work. And it is my hope that over the next couple days, you'll have an opportunity to meet with those people, confer with them, and take some encouragement back with you, learning that you too are not walking alone, that you're walking on the same path. Now, let's see here. I'm going to stop this share. So, tonight's keynote speaker, Rabbi Dr. Laura-Duhan-Kaplan, is known to many of you, teacher, rabbi, professor, friend. I want to mention how she came into my life. I don't think I've ever told you this story. It was 2013, and a friend of mine told me about a Pride Shabbat that was going to be held at Van Dusen Garden, 2013, 2014. And that friend, with eyes that were almost a little too wide, like a little scary, said, "You have to come. Rabbi Laura is there. She's a holy woman." And I said, "Oh, then I definitely feel like I need to go now." And indeed, I don't remember exactly what you spoke on that evening, but I was so touched by your message that not only did it draw me to visit Or Shalom, it actually encouraged me towards my conversion to Judaism. And so perhaps without you kind of invisibly being there, walking with me, I would not have come under the wings of the Shekhinah and walked the path that I did. So thank you, Rabbi Laura. Rabbi Laura is an award-winning educator with almost 4 decades of experience as a professor and administrator. She has been the professor of Jewish Studies and director of Interreligious Studies here at the Vancouver School of Theology, my predecessor. She is the Rabbi Emerita of Or Shalom Synagogue here in Vancouver, Professor Emerita of Philosophy and Women's Studies at University of North Carolina, Charlotte, a member of the Interfaith Amigos, and Rabbi Laura has received numerous awards for her teaching of philosophy and religion, including the prestigious Carnegie Foundation U.S. Professor of the Year Award in 2001 and the American Academy of Religion Katie Geneva Cannon Award for Excellence in Teaching in 2022. Currently, Rabbi Laura is now the Dean of the Aleph Ordination Program, which is sort of like the seminary of the renewal movement. And in addition to all of this, she has found time to publish academic articles, co-edited anthologies and spiritual books, including, I have to plug them, Shekhinah Bring Me Home, Kabbalah and the Omer in Real Life, Mouth of the Donkey, love this one, Reimagining Biblical Animals, The Infinity Inside, I have it on my Kindle, Jewish Spiritual Practice Through a Multi-Faith Lens, and she has also co-edited Religious Pluralism and Public Life, Multi-Religious Reflections on Friendship, Visions of the End Times, Revelations of Hope and Challenge, a topic to which you'll be speaking tonight, I believe, and also Encountering the Other, Christian and Multi-Faith Perspectives. And I will place all of these books in the back if you'd like to take a look afterwards. Rabbi Laura holds a PhD in philosophy and education, along with master's degrees in both fields. She received rabbinic ordination from Aleph in 2005, a graduate diploma in spiritual direction from VST in 2010, and completed a 500-hour, 2-year certificate in Ayurvedic yoga from the New Life Center in 1984. Rabbi Laura lives with her husband Charles in Vancouver, Canada, on Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh territory. Together they enjoy hiking, befriending urban wildlife, caring for companion animals, co-leading musical events and prayer services, participating in Jewish and interfaith communal life, and spending time with their 2 grown children. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Rabbi Dr. Laura-Duhan-Kaplan.
Here we go. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Casey, for that magnificent introduction. The problem with a really good introduction for you as the speaker is then, well, I could never give a talk that lives up to that bio, right? Who is that person? Do they ever sleep? Right. And I wonder what they would say if they were here. So instead of going in that direction and second guessing what that elevated an imaginary version of me might say, I will instead share with you the talk that I have prepared. I am very, very grateful to Casey for taking this conference in a new direction. I'm grateful to Nicola for being the conference administrator, making sure everything is organized. I'm very grateful to Yehuda Mansell for teaching the course associated with the conference, and to the VST staff who is making everything happen. Thanks very much, and I look forward to learning with many of you over the next several days. And the talk I've prepared is sort of related to its title, From Conflict to Connection, Spiritual Community in Stressful Times. Uh-oh. There we go. Nope. We are waiting for the troubleshooting of the slides. I'm also grateful to our guests who started us off with a singing as a welcome to the land and the space. Thank you very much. No worries. Let's just do this. This will work. It didn't work a minute ago. Is it working now? No, it's not. So we're just going to escape this, and we're going to share in this imperfect way. No, that doesn't work. Just let me do it. Thanks. We'll just do it this way. Great, thanks. We'll just do it this way. It's not full screen, but I think the letters are big. I like to start by singing. This is a very simple song written by my colleague and friend, Linda Hirshhorn. I'll sing it once, join in as soon as you get it. We'll sing it together a second time. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us in prison, circle for release. Circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us in prison, circle for release. Circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. And we'll sing it again in a while. Linda also does much more complex compositions, but she created this one specifically for us to learn really quickly. Uh-oh. It still doesn't want to share any slides. I can do the talk without sharing slides. I just use them as my notes, and we don't have to watch. I'm all good. You can fix it. In the meantime, I am about to show you a picture of a circle that is not a circle, that looks a lot more like that. Right? If we are talking about the world or the community or the variety of communities as a circle, let's get real. It's not a perfect circle. We are many different people doing many different things, overlapping, intersecting, sometimes clashing. That's the kind of circle that we have, that we are working with when we try to make things whole. Nope, not happening. I will show one more slide because it has a text, and I'm going to frame what I have to say with a text from our Jewish tradition. Okay, we see this. This is a very, very famous text from a 2nd century compilation of Jewish wisdom. In Hebrew, it's called Pirkei Avot. It's usually translated as Ethics of the Fathers, but that is just a terrible translation. Not only is it patriarchal, it isn't even what the Hebrew says. Basic aphorisms is a much closer translation to the Hebrew. What are some of the basic aphorisms that you need to navigate your way through this crazy, crooked circle? And here's one of them. This is from Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Tarfon, by the way, was a real person. He was a tremendously wealthy person who owned, the hyperbole says, 100 farms, but he owned a lot of farms and he had a lot of employees, and this is why he is drawn to these kinds of metaphors for talking about spiritual work. It's just like farm work. And he says, I'll read the Hebrew and translate it for you. Rabbi Tarfon Omer, Hayom Katzar, V'hamlacha Meruba, V'hapoalim Atzelim, V'hasachar Harbe, U'va'al Habayit Dochek. This is the first section. Rabbi Tarfon said, the day is short, the work is plentiful, the workers are lazy, the reward is great, and the master of the house is pushy. That's the Hebrew. So there's a lot of work to do, and the master, the Holy One of Blessing, wants us to do that work. But Hu Haya Omer, Rabbi Tarfon also used to say, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, it is not on you to finish the work. V'lo ata ven chorin levatel mimena, but you're also not free to avoid it. It's not up to you to finish the work, but you're not free to avoid it. I want to talk a little bit about some of the concepts in that first paragraph. Hayom katzar, the day is short. That's one translation. The Hebrew word hayom also means today. Pay attention to what is happening today. Katzar means short, but it also means cutting things short, as in harvesting a field. The harvest is today. What we are working with in the work that we do is what is happening globally around the world today, and I will be talking about that. Hamlacha meruba, not only is there a lot of it, but it keeps growing. There's more and more and more to be done. Hapoalim atzelim, the workers are lazy. I'm going to pretend the workers are not lazy. We just need to refocus every once in a while and keep working on our skills that we bring to the work. Hasachar harbe, big reward. That will be obvious. Va'al habayit dochek. The Holy One of Blessing really, really wants us to do this work. The Creator, God, Spirit of the world, whatever language you use, the work is urgent. Look at that. Thank you, Sodam. What is the work? What is the work? Here are some of the kinds of work that people at this conference are going to be talking about. Work in climate, food security, interfaith, multicultural community, decolonization, indigenous learning, spiritual care, nonviolence, protest, arts, ritual, refugee support, theology. I almost left theology off my list and had to add it at the end because, first, it pervades everything that we do, and second, I left it off my list of urgent things. So I know that this work that is listed here is not easy work. This is a photo I took on a hiking trail, but truly I think it describes what's going on with this kind of work in the world. It has been difficult, it may become extreme, or it has been extreme, now it's easier and it's just difficult. I acknowledge that. And I also acknowledge that in talking about this work, we should start off with an honest appraisal of where we are. Whoops, let's try this. Oh, there you go. I put this sign up just because I think it is an incredible photo. This is real life. It's another photo that I took. It's a "You Are Here" sign in the old city of Jerusalem. And it basically says, you don't know where you are? I, the sign that's supposed to guide you, don't know where you are. But hey, we're here. And in talking about where we are, that is, what is the global situation in which we do this work, I want to share some ideas of the sociologist Zygmunt Bauman. This book is called Liquid Times, Living in an Age of Uncertainty. He is a philosopher who looks at the world with a Marxist bent. That is, he is critical of global economic trends. He wrote this book in 2007 when he was about 90 years old. I think it was like his 52nd book. This is someone who has dedicated his life to observing and analyzing and teaching and communicating. So I'm going to share a few of his ideas. In this particular book, he talks about globalization, economic globalization. And he says the rhetoric of globalization promised one thing, and the outcome seems to be very different. The promise was there'll be linkages, there'll be free information sharing, organizing and resistance will be easier, the arts will become freer, right? More able to critique society, more creative. We will become part of the evolution of the world soul to a higher level of consciousness. And what is the outcome? According to Bauman, I'm not saying I disagree, but I'm saying this is what he says in his book. He says, in fact, globalization has become primarily the work of a small group of highly wealthy, highly influential people. And what it has brought almost everyone else is increasing income inequality, more displaced people, more incarcerated people, more environmental devastation, more elite criminality, more precarity, that is precarious life, more anxiety. Do you want any statistics? Or are you reading about this in the newspaper every day? Statistics, why not? Let me grab them. I made a little list of the lowlights here. Highlights, lowlights. You get the reference. Okay. On income inequality from the United Nations, in the last 25 years, income inequality has widened in 71% of countries. The share of income going to the top 1%, whoa, this is a very report-like sentence. The share of income going to the top 1% of the global population increased in 46 of the 57 countries where data had been collected. Also from the United Nations, this is a really devastating one to hear. Global displacement has more than doubled in a decade, with over 123 million people forcibly displaced worldwide, including among those 123 million, 43 million officially recognized refugees, which means the rest of the group has no access to the kinds of services that the UN and other refugee agencies can provide. Here's something from a United Nations affiliate organization in Thailand. The global prison population in the last 25 years is up 27%. I probably don't need to tell you what the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, says. Human activities, principally through emissions of greenhouse gases, have unequivocally caused global warming, with global surface temperature reaching 1.1 degrees Celsius above 1900 levels. Emissions are increasing, temperature is increasing. This is due to unsustainable energy use, land use, lifestyles, patterns of consumption across regions, between and within countries, among individuals. As they put it, there's no one who's not implicated in this. Just a little bit, last one I'll say. The World Health Organization statistic from 2025, more than 1 billion people are living with mental health disorders, according to new data, with conditions such as anxiety and depression inflicting immense human and economic tolls. And Stats Canada adds in 2019, I don't need to give you the details, between 2019 and 2023, the proportion of older teens and young adults who report their mental health as poor more than doubled. It's now at 26%. And I probably do not need to tell anyone how devastating that is, because is there anyone among us who has not lost a cherished person to suicide or addiction? We all have. These are immediate issues that are part of our lives, even if we own one family homes and have a bazillion academic degrees. This is part of the landscape of our lives. And this is the environment in which we are doing our work. Can we look to politicians? Can we look to government? Unfortunately, governments have also been responding to changes in income and world composition. There is less money available for the kinds of supports that we look to government for. And without something tangible to offer, politicians, again, this is Zygmunt Bauman's book, politicians offer a politics of fear. Why are you losing so much? Well, we can't really blame global economic trends because then we won't get the money that we need to support the work that some of us are still trying to do. So all we can do is say, you see that person over there that you don't really know a lot about? It's because of them that things are going badly. And if we just shut them down, get rid of them, everything will be better. What's the result? Again, Zygmunt Bauman. The proposed solutions increase the fear. And we get a culture of polarization. Right? People divided into groups at odds with each other. Us, them. It's reinforced daily with propaganda in newspapers, on television, on the internet. Right? Half of social media is bots talking to bots in an attempt to make everybody enraged and angry with other people. It's also enforced through segregation. Neighborhoods become increasingly mono-ethnic. They become increasingly confined to people of one class or another class, economic class. And so people get to know one another less and less and less. And thus the fear tactics work more and more. And just in case people don't want to segregate themselves, we have an increased police presence, keeping people out of certain places. And at the national level, in many countries, we have a closing of borders, right? Not allowing people in. You don't have to think very deeply to see the paradox, 123 million displaced people, and countries increasingly saying, we don't have any place for you to live, we don't have any services for you, and should our population have empathy for you, don't worry, we will barrage them daily with information about how awful you are. And Bauman says, these are global problems. They are caused at the global level. But guess who is tasked with solving them? Cities, spiritual communities, social service agencies. All of this lands at our doors as we try to do the work that we are speaking about at this conference. And in a moment, I'll come back to Bauman, but I'm going to take a little digression into myself and my work. Things that are happening in my own workplace, in my own spiritual community. Right? I'm head of a Jewish seminary. We have 70 students, which is very large for a Jewish seminary, but with billions of people in the world, 70 people is not a very large community to be working with or to be responsible for. And yet these global trends are landing in our community and doing their work. I'll give you an example. Let's say we have a conflict in a class between students and teacher. The students say, there's so much in our religious tradition that is racist. And it's true. It's a tradition made up of people in their times and their places with their prejudices, and that's there. But when the students speak to the teacher about it, the teacher says, young adults today don't respect their teachers the way they used to. And that's true too. Now, it would be great if we could just put the people having a conflict in a room together to speak with one another. But increasingly, because of habits of polarization, people are saying, no, we don't even want to talk about it. And then people who are not directly involved in the conflict, but have some sort of tangential stake in the organization are saying, you could just fix it if you never let in any people who think that. Or you could just fix it if you never let in any people who act that way. But why would we do that? Right? We're a microcosm of the world. We want to be that crazy, misshapen circle, and we want to live together. Isn't that an essential pastoral skill? I'll give another example, because it's really important not to have a talk. It's really important to not avoid mentioning this. 2 students in the program are tasked with leading a prayer service together, and they want to pray for peace. But one of them identifies themselves as an anti-Zionist, and the other one identifies themselves as a Zionist. And they don't know how to pray together for the community, the worldwide community of Jews. They're just paralyzed. And so they appeal to us, the administration, and they say, tell them they're wrong. And we say, well, we don't do that. How about we sit in a room with both of you? You could have the ombudsperson, you could have the faculty, you could have the teachers. But the students are reticent to do that because in our larger environment, what is modeled is cutting people off rather than building a community of difference. And you can see where I am going with this, I will be talking about some of the skills involved in that. Back to Zygmunt Bauman and his ideas. So cities are left to deal with the fallout from global problems. And here are just some examples to make it clear. A global issue, toxic industry is everywhere. Sites are selected by major corporations who negotiate and push and bribe until they get a spot. Well, you find out that something is going to be located in your city. And then you have the choice to push back or to negotiate about where it will be or how severe it will be. And you can see this is just an image from protests in Vancouver last week against a new AI data center. Here's another one. Global issue, refugees are displaced by war, by economic devastation, by people targeting their lands to create for-profit enterprises. But the question of how best to welcome refugees and newcomers, how many or not at all, those are left to countries, to provinces, to cities, to refugee support organizations. And it is, without a doubt, the height of irresponsibility to create big problems and leave them to other people and say, you fix this. But everybody in this room has accepted that challenge. That is what we are doing. And so, about that, Bowman says, the need is a given, it's non-negotiable. But the way in which city residents go about meeting these demands, that's a matter of choice. So a little bit about some of the choices. And I will be speaking about things that are general to all the work, not specific to any particular one. This is again Bowman with a photo of Vancouver. Bowman says, cities are inherently diverse spaces, particularly coastal cities like this one. Strangers stay in these places, that is, people from different parts of the world, different walks of life, different cultures. They stay and they move in close proximity to one another. That's a fact of life. We are all in this together. And some people are attracted to cities because of that. And some people are terrified of cities because of that. And both kinds of people live together in cities. And Bowman says that living together in a diverse place, a multicultural place, a multi-class place, multi-ethnic place, living together requires skill. And these are some of the skills that he names. And I love his turn of phrase here. The ability to work through miscomprehension. He isn't using the word a misunderstanding because, that's tainted by people covering up their mistakes all the time by saying, oh, it was just a misunderstanding. A miscomprehension, when you say something and you mean something, and somebody else who sees the situation in an entirely different way thinks you meant the opposite. They might think you promised them something positive that you're not actually able to give them. Or they might think that you told them you would never give them something when that wasn't your intention at all. You were only thinking through the logistics of it. And so we need the ability to persevere, right? To keep talking in order to work through these issues. We need the ability to translate between universes of meaning. Let's just give a very simple one related to education. Right? Some people think that in order to succeed economically, in order for the entire city and province to solve, as many people as possible need to be educated. Other people think higher education takes way too much money that could be spent elsewhere, and higher education is pointless. People should be apprenticing and learning the work that there is. And when these two people are talking about education and learning and trying to make policy together and trying to decide how do we support Langara College, formerly Vancouver Community College, we have two completely different understandings of what education is at stake here. It so happens that Langara College is an amazing place and it does both of those things, right? Specific job training and general higher education, but that's rare to be so accomplishful. And we also need to negotiate shared meanings for all working with the same pot of municipal money, and we all have different ideas of what is best for the city. How do we come together to make our decisions? How do we decide what is best, or at least what we're willing to try together? And Bowman says, correctly, that these are skills for people to learn. And the current social environment shuts down these skills. Some would say deliberately, others would say it's just kind of what is happening in our media environment. And so we end up with a cycle. Bowman calls it mixophobia, and this is my shorthand image of what he's talking about. We start off with a fear of the unknown. He says that's just a human characteristic, to be afraid of what is unknown. And it takes skill to deal with that. Inner strength, communal support, faith in the future. And when we don't have those things, our fear of the unknown searches for a target. Oh, if only that unknown thing were known. Or worse, if only that unknown thing were removed. Right? Look at all these people who want to arrive from Afghanistan. I don't know anything about Afghanistan except Osama bin Laden, so let's not let anyone come here. And let's say that happens. Then you feel safe for a couple of months. But what happens as fewer and fewer new and different people become part of your life? Different people, Bowman calls them strangers, different people seem even more scary. What will I say to them? Are they judging me? Look, they don't have much money. Are they going to rob me? All kinds of fantasies arise in people's minds. And as our fear grows, what I would like to call our epistemic courage, our courage to learn, our courage to take the risks to learn, lessons. And then our fear of the unknown increases, and we go round and round and round. What are some things that we can do to stop the cycle, right? To predispose ourselves, to train ourselves to be better at walking together. And I should say, I do not presume to be telling anybody here how to walk together better, because this is what we do, but maybe these ideas will also help you in supporting the people you support, working with your clients, working with your communities. And there are three things I want to talk about, and the picture of the crow is just there because he looks very wise. And I think it's helpful. One thing we can do is we can question propaganda, we can learn to listen, and we can become skilled in hearing what is uncomfortable. That seems like a small thing and a superficial thing, but it isn't. That is key to this cycle of fear and lack of epistemic courage. Epistemology meaning the study of knowing, epistemic courage, the courage to know. Because of my background as a philosopher, I thought I would throw in a little bit about habits of critical thinking, so that when you are online, reading the newspaper, listening to podcasts, observing perhaps bots talking to each other, you have for yourself some signposts where you want to say, stop, I don't think this is right. One of them is when you see the hasty generalization fallacy, right? I read about Osama bin Laden. I know that everyone who lives in Afghanistan is the head of a world terrorist organization. You know, my uncle is from Iran and I don't like him. He's overbearing. Thus, everybody from Iran is probably overbearing, and I really don't wish to know anyone. we're smiling, but people actually think like that. And when we see people thinking like that, sometimes we might want to call them out. Sometimes they're strangers and we have no role in their discourse, especially if it's online. But what we want to make sure is that we say to ourselves, whoa, I see what's going on here. I am not going to think like that. Of course, we have to make some generalizations to protect ourselves, but we also have to realistically ask, is this a situation in which I need to protect myself? What is at stake here? If we're not talking our immediate protection, then we can think critically. Has another favorite one. False dichotomy, false bifurcation, the either-or fallacy, right? No gray thinking, claiming that there are only two options when in fact there are many more. Like the students trying to figure out how to pray. Should we pray for the well-being of Israelis? Or should we pray for the well-being of Palestinians? We can't do both because that's too complicated. How will we work out the words? Of course, if you're training to be a clergy person, it is your job to work out the words, and those skills will come, even if they haven't come right now. That's an either or, right? We either want people from these countries to land here, or we don't. We either want the government to fund reconciliation, or we don't. But there are so many nuances in between and so many ways to work through compromises. And when you see this either-or thinking, you might just be seeing troublemakers, but you also might be seeing people who are afraid to think through and negotiate a middle ground because it's scary. And when you see that happening, try not to buy into it. Try to say, I see what's happening here. I am going to be one of those people who has the courage to understand the nuances of the middle. I don't know what they are yet. I don't know what my role in that is, but I believe that is possible. And I have one more fun fallacy here. This slide calls it the bandwagon effect. I didn't make these pictures, by the way. The bandwagon effect is what I call in my mind the 53 million people can't be wrong fallacy. Oh, yes, they can. Oh, yes, they can. We often hear in the Jewish community, but everybody who's Jewish believes this. I'm like, we do? Whoops, I don't. Are you sure? Do I need to believe it just because you told me this is how everyone else thinks? And so I have adopted a principle. I adopted this principle years ago, and it drives my friends and family crazy. If everyone agrees on something, I say, wait a minute, isn't there also another way to look at this? And there's a mythical teaching in our tradition about the Sanhedrin, ancient Jewish court, when a death penalty case came before this jury of 70 judges. If there is a unanimous guilty verdict, the person is freed, because there couldn't possibly have been a unanimous verdict without groupthink. And when people's lives are at stake, we don't want groupthink. We want something nuanced, something we can work together on. Just a brief bit about some critical thinking ideas. When it comes to getting together to learn about people who are different from us, to learn with people who are different from us. Perhaps in order to negotiate with them, perhaps in order to develop relationships with new friends and family members, people we're thrown together with at work, in the neighborhood, any possible place. It's really helpful to learn how to listen. And I have some strategies that I use for that. Just checking the time. Which I learned at the Vancouver School of Theology in, when did I learn them? 2005, 2006, 2007. In the spiritual direction program, we were trained in a Rogerian psychology listening model. And we learned a little bit about how to prepare ourselves for listening. What is the inner work that we do? We quiet the mind. And to quiet the mind, that takes courage, because you have to say to yourself, I trust that I'm going to be able to understand what I'm hearing. I trust I'm going to be able to be present. I trust I'm going to be able to respond without continuous prompting. I will be able to be present in a different way. So when I'm getting ready to listen in this way of learning, I'll quiet my mind. I'll notice my sensations. And I will breathe, I will breathe slowly and deeply. I won't go, because that doesn't calm me. I calm down and trust that my responses will come. That is, I can listen without, after every single thing that is said, saying to myself, I know what to say about that. I'll log that. I'm going to contest that. Here's where I could help them do some psychological growth. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to listen, and I'm going to observe what comes in from the other person and what arises in me. I'm going to listen to the words. I'm going to feel the feelings. I might be feeling some strange feelings, which are me feeling another person's feelings. A very real phenomenon, since feelings are transmitted, at the very least, chemically in the air from person to person. They're transmitted with body language. We find out what they are. I might feel someone else's feelings. I might feel my own feelings. I might notice people expressing values, what's important to them. And when I hear and feel some of these things, I might recoil. I really might. Now, I will add that I also have a lot of strategies for how you respond to people's words and feelings that come in, but I'm not going to go in that direction as I come to the end. I am going to say that some of what I hear and feel and observe is probably not going to feel good. This is the epistemic courage point that I want to make. It's not going to feel good. Somebody is going to perhaps express values that I find abhorrent, right? They might say, I don't want any social service centers in my neighborhood. Somebody might say, yeah, oh God, I don't even want to give examples anymore. Sorry, the examples that came to me were just so awful. I might feel things that feel bad. I might notice what they feel strongly about. And some of their words might be directed at me. They might say to me, I know your type. You are so tainted by a colonial mindset, there is no chance you can even understand what I'm saying. And of course, I might be thinking, but I'm here trying to listen and learn. And yet, when I'm in the listening mode, I'm hearing that. And it's okay to feel bad. Conflict resolution work, courageous work, meeting difference, solving problems doesn't always feel good. Especially in the short term, and sometimes even in the long term. You might not be happy with the compromise. You might not be happy with what you learn about other people. You might not be happy with what you learn about yourself. It is hard work. And of all the points that I made tonight, that's the one I want people to most take to heart. There's nothing wrong with you if the work is hard. If you feel hurt feelings, I'm not talking about if somebody attacks you physically or tries to get you fired from your job, but if you feel hurt feelings, you're probably not doing it wrong. You're probably entering into something with good faith. And you are there just to find out what is the depth of difficult experience that other people are carrying. And you yourself are likely carrying some of that as well. And when it's someone else's turn to listen, then you get to express those. But I also want to say, and here's the connection of the first part and the second part, the time in which we live today, a time where so many forces work against understanding, work against the kind of collaboration that we are trying to do here. It's a time of heightened feelings. We are all affected. It's a time of heightened anxiety. We may not respond on a survey that our mental health is poor. And it is highly likely that we are more anxious than we are comfortable with. And part of the courage of doing this work in our time is to be okay with that. Now, how do we be okay with that? We need strategies. These are just a few of my strategies, and I'll share them with you and close. One of the things that I do every day is I recite what we call in Jewish tradition the 13 attributes of compassion. This is one particular translation of them. Yud He Vav He. So where these come from is in the Bible when Moses is at Mount Sinai and he says to God, "Show me your face." And God says, "You can't see my face, but you can see my after effects. You can see my back. What is it like when the divine is present? What is my true essence?" This is what is revealed, right? God, the ineffable one, compassion, tenderness, patience, forbearance, kindness, awareness, carrying love for thousands of years, right? Lifting guilt, letting people let go of mistakes, right? Allowing freedom and a fresh start. Not immediately, takes time. In fact, the Bible says it might take 4 generations for all these processes to work through. But the point is, when I find myself angry and constricted, I will pause and I will recite this mantra. And I will say to myself, this is the essence. This is the essence of the work. Is it a magic panacea? No, that's why I practice it every day. It's important. Another thing that I like to do, something that I learned about in this very room when Bishop Melissa Skelton was teaching about Benedictine spirituality. I like to do the examination of consciousness. I don't do it every day. If I find that I need it, I'll do it for a few months, and then I'll pause. But I like it very much, and it works like this. You find as quiet a space as you can find. You allow yourself to become aware of divine presence, whatever that means to you. It might be a feeling, it might be a shift in your awareness. It might feel like you're opening a conversation. And then you review the day with gratitude. You look at what is positive. What are the gifts you have to operate with? Maybe it's been a really hard day, but you have a loving family member who you know you can turn to if you need to. Thank you, God. Maybe all relationships were disrupted, but the sun is shining, right? And you hear the evening songbirds. You say, thank you, Creator. That, the Benedictines say, establishes your relationship with the Holy One and opens the channel. And then, as you think about the day, you pay attention to your emotions. Maybe you're very excited about that beautiful flower that just blossomed. And then you feel a bit of sadness. Why isn't all of life so beautiful? Or, I know this plant, the blossom's going to last for 3 days and then it's gone. Just notice. And then choose one thing that's on your heart and mind and pray in the way that you pray. Holy One, Spirit, Creator, inner witness, conscience. Help me hold what happened today. Does it mean I am this? Does it mean I am that? Do I not yet have the capacity to hold this? Who can I turn to? Is it too early to seek help? All of these questions, allow yourself to ask them. And ask for help and support, perhaps from the Holy One, or perhaps from one of the people whose presence in your life you're grateful for. And then at the end, you look toward tomorrow and you say, whatever it is has come out of your reflection. Perhaps it's what you need to do. Perhaps it's the realization that you've made no progress, but you hope tomorrow will be better. Perhaps you say, this is my ethical resolution for tomorrow. And then, in the traditional examen, you close with some kind of a prayer formula that is important to you. And I'm going to give just one. And this is the priestly blessing from the book of Numbers, which holds in it a beautiful teaching about divinity. In the Bible, God says, Moses, speak to Aaron and his sons and say this. This is how you should bless the people. May God bless you and hold you precious. May God shine the divine face toward you and grant you grace. May God turn the divine face toward you and place peace upon you. And then God adds, they shall place my name upon the people, and I will bless them. And we say that this blessing is not just a blessing, but it's a teaching about the essence of divinity and spirit. The divine face, the divine name is peace. And it promises that if you do the kind of work that I have been talking about and that you are doing, if you keep on keeping on, you keep on reaching out, you keep on growing inside, there will be peace. Perhaps more inner peace, more social peace. This is the promise. And I should say that in Jewish tradition, the biblical figure Aaron is the consummate peacemaker. I don't agree with all of Aaron's tactics and outcomes. He might have gone a little too far when he kept the peace by building the golden calf. But that aside, he is also a person who, in biblical stories, laid his life on the line for other people, right? Got between the plague and the people, the snakes and the people. He did the work. And this teaching, we say, is one of his mythological legacies to us. Do the work of peacemaking, and some kinds of peace will come. And even though I just said all this stuff about how it's really hard and it often doesn't work out the way you want it to, I mean, if you're doing conflict transformation, that probably means you don't get the predetermined outcome you had hoped for. The conflict will be transformed, not resolved to your advantage. But there is that spiritual promise of having faith that things can resolve and get better. And maybe the global thinkers are going to keep doing what they do without regard to local communities. But we here in our local communities, as Bowman says, we have a choice about how we are going to do things. But you know, as Rabbi Tarfon says, you know, we don't have that much time. There's so much to do. Not everybody is on board with it. But you know what? The reward can really, really be great. And the Holy One of Blessing, the Creator, God, is in our corner, pushing us to do it. And as Rabbi Tarfon says, it's not up to you to finish the work. Please don't be terrified by the enormity of it. But you have to do something. You have to do something. And maybe we can sing. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us in prison, circle for release. Circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. We have a little bit of time for questions, if you're willing to take some. About 10 minutes.
Discussion, comments,
And
upsetting things.
I'll pass the mic around if people want to ask a question. Just raise a hand and I'll come to you with the mic.
There might also be something in the chat.
Right, maybe.
I worked at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I was across Canada, mostly in cultural support, but a lot of trauma support. And I was there to witness the Jewish delegation that promised for reconciliation in many ways, and made a commitment to financial reconciliation as well. And I just want to honor that because we were given scholarships to come here. And I want to thank you very much for fulfilling the commitment the Jewish delegation gave in the Truth and Reconciliation. When you were speaking of, immigrants coming in, and I have to speak for my partner and my brother who had to step out for another commitment. It's difficult to receive when you hear the welcome to the land, welcome to the land. And that welcome really is coming from a good place. But when you take a really good look at, for the example, Indigenous people were not allowed to have property they were not allowed to own property in the most exclusive areas. They could have owned property, but it was a government mandate. So now when you go into neighborhoods and you say, well, there's no Indigenous people here, they can't afford it, or, it's because there was a history of being banned from buying property or owning property. So you're coming from a disadvantage. You're also coming from a huge disadvantage of the Holocaust that was here through residential school. And so sometimes it's very difficult for Indigenous people to see people come here and have such an incredible advantage over them. Over the days, and I'm sure a lot of you have already done a lot of decolonization work within your wherever you're coming from, but to look at the perspective of what it looks like for an Indigenous person to not have ever historically been able to own land, that they were very wealthy at the beginning, but the fisheries, example, were taken away by the governments, so that they had such an enormous advantage. Also, the assumptions that Indigenous people drink alcohol, and that's very separate within our communities, because within our communities, Indigenous people are not allowed to drink any alcohol at all if you're going to ceremonies. That means at all. So all of our traditional ceremonies, there was never any alcohol involved. So there's a lot of preconceived ideas about Indigenous people. We'll be here for 3 days if you have the idea of sitting in consultation, sitting in and talking about it. Ask the questions, talk about it, learn your history, and then you'll know why sometimes it's a little bit hard for Indigenous people to welcome refugees when they're already so more advantaged than the people who originally owned this territory. I had to speak for my partner, he's not here right now, and my brother, but hopefully you'll hear them speak within the next couple of days, because they have a lot to share, and they're really, really grateful to be here and to receive the scholarship that you were given, and following through the honorable statements from the Jewish delegation in the Truth and Reconciliation, which no one else committed to.
Yeah, thank you.
All my relations.
Very much. Thank you very much. I will add that in 2020, I worked with Ray Aldred on a book for the Canadian Race Relations Foundation called Spirit of Reconciliation, and we collected reflections. Arun was one of the contributors. We collected reflections from people representing different religious and spiritual communities around the country about what they were doing around reconciliation. And some of what was put forward in that book was Jewish Indigenous collaboration around documenting trauma. Yeah, so shared practices, and I also very much appreciate what you said about internal to the country displacement and marginalization of Indigenous people in Canadian life, and how that is something just as immediate, if not more so, to be attending to in this work. Thank you. Eleanor.
Dr. Kaplan, thank you. I wonder if you could say a little more about false dichotomies. I find that sort of philosophical fallacy, or very standard sort of pitfall that humans fall into, very interesting. I guess one aspect for me is, are we more prone to it today because life is more complicated and we are exposed to more issues? that it's just easier to say, you know, this is the truth or that's the truth, rather than recognizing nuance. And it also makes me think that I think one of my defenses against falling into false dichotomy is I try to say as often as I can, I don't have an opinion on that, which is really hard to do because we like to have opinions, right? But I think if we fall into wanting to have an opinion on a complex topic, we are going to fall into one or the other of an extreme opinion because we don't know the nuance. Anyway, anything you want to say about false dichotomies would be welcome.
I don't believe that we are more prey to that than we have ever been in any time in human history. And of course, we is a very big category. There may be some cultures that fall into it more than others. I do think, though, that in our media environment, right, which is very fast-paced, very short-staffed, very, very heavily dependent on social media opinion makers. There is a lot of pressure to fall into false dichotomies. I think the way news stories work is complex situations are packaged into a good guys versus bad guys story. A celebrity actor versus another celebrity actor, rather than the real people who are living whatever the issue is. I think that helps reinforce those habits, and I think what you said about having an opinion, when there are so many cheap and easily available pre-packaged opinions, for us to pick one and hold on to it really strong. And then I think that the false dichotomy fallacy is also related to the think what everyone else thinks fallacy, because we tend to, again, we, an elastic term, many human beings and myself occasionally tend to belong or desire to belong to a group first, and then secondly, desire to know. And so too often we say, this is the view of the group that I want to belong to, when we haven't thought it through ourselves, right? And that's the philosopher's perspective, right? That the thinking it through is the most important part, because sometimes belonging can be the most important part, right? The person of practical wisdom is balancing those, to use Aristotle's term. Please, Arun.
Yeah, so you talked about fear, and then you also talked about courage, like epistemic,
epistemic, however you choose.
Yeah, epistemic courage. I wonder about that in this climate of polarization and speaking truth, your truth, or speaking one's truth, or I would say truth-telling has become so difficult now. So I would like to, so I'm just interested what you have to say in that, developing that courage and then speaking your truth, while knowing that there can be consequences. Thanks.
I agree that truth-telling is very difficult. Everything, I wouldn't say everything, many things are surveilled, recorded, tracked, available if somebody wants to be out to get you. For example, everything we're saying in this room, everything we as faculty at VST say in our classes, every email we send, all of that is available. And, you know, in philosophy, this is going back to Jean-Paul Sartre, but it just goes back to human life. Everyone has competing responsibilities, right? You might say, I want to speak out at work because I see this coworker of mine is being treated unjustly. and yet you know you will be fired, and then your children who are relying on you will not have support, right? You won't pay the rent. What will they do? So there are real dilemmas. And there's also the art of speaking your truth. But I think that at least sometimes there is nothing at stake except feeling bad, feeling scared. And those are the times when I'm saying, at least take those risks. And you have to assess the situation. Sometimes there is a backlash. Sometimes it's just against you. Sometimes it's against people you love and your entire community. And you also have a responsibility to protect them, right? Truth, belonging. So I don't think it's a simple choice. But when you've assessed the situation and there is nothing at stake except feeling scared, that's when I think we should at least go for being courageous. Others here might have a different view of that, such as yourself. Yeah, as you know, Rabbi Tarfon says, you don't have to do it all, but do something.
Not doing it in the moment, kind of, someone is stealing our soul being stolen, like, you know, we are suppressing our voice, right? Sometimes, and I see it because of the polarization in the society. Yeah, and I wonder about that. I mean, the cost of that. Collectively as a society, there has been, because of the war and all this going on, as you mentioned earlier, people are feeling distressed, but they're not able to talk about it, share about it openly. So I wonder about the cost of that. As you talked about, spiritual distress and spiritual care is one of the themes of the conference. I wonder about that. Thanks.
Yeah, Casey, do I have a moment to dialogue about that?
Yes, I think that would be a perfect closing topic.
Okay, so two things. One thing is, what does it mean in the moment, right? If somebody is harassing somebody else on the bus, there is only that moment. If somebody is being harassed on a continual basis at work, you might have a few weeks to strategize about how to effectively intervene, and then you might want to take those few weeks so that instead of both of you getting fired, the harasser is stopped. Just a thought. But in terms of people being distressed and not knowing how to talk about things, and this is something that all of us here know in one form or another, it helps if we can provide a container for them to talk about things, right? Some indigenous talking circle and listening circle strategies are excellent things to learn about or to ask for help with. We have many, many other, right, techniques, group spiritual direction, for example, that teaches us how to hold a space where people can talk. And a lot of the time, it doesn't have to be a problem-solving space. It can simply be a being together space. And you know, this is one of the techniques that people have used at synagogues when half the congregation says, but I'm still a Zionist, and the other half of the congregation says, I'm a proud anti-Zionist, but I'm married to you, and you're my brother, and you're my sister, and you're my kid, and we have to live together. So, like, you know, it doesn't fix everything. You don't have to finish the work, but can you do something? Yeah. Thank you all so much. Over to you, Casey.
Well, Rabbi, we have a little gift for you. How many years have you been? These are some flowers for you. It was the only one with purple wrapping. And so I knew this is for Rabbi Laura. Rabbi, do you know off the top of your head how many years you led the conference?
The first year was 2015,
So like 10 years?
11 maybe?
10, 11 years.
10, I think.
Well,
Thanks. It morphs all the time, so I appreciate it.
having you as the keynote speaker tonight, as we transition, is so, I think, auspicious. I'm so grateful that you took time and shared these beautiful, useful, practical thoughts with us. Indeed, a balance of the philosophical and the practical. It's a difficult but important work that we all face. So thank you so much. And I hope you'll all join me with a round of applause for Rabbi Laura.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So from here, we're going to transition to a reception for registered participants. So if anyone, if you're here with us this evening and you're a registered participant in the conference, we invite you to stick around for no? Oh, everyone? Everyone's welcome. So everyone, if you have the time and are maybe a little thirsty or hungry, stick around for cheese and goodies in the back, and we can continue our mingling and discussion for about another hour or so. So thank you all. Thank you very much. And thank you to Lucas and Sodam up there for making all the... and to everyone online who joined us. I think we had like 60 people online. So there were many more people here than we could see walking with us, just like Kobo Daishi. So thank you, everyone online. Good night.